audit has caught the attention of many, especially the disgraced ex-president. Last week, he suggested the audit would find him thousands and thousands of votes, and then said it will lead to finding votes in other states he lost in November, like Georgia and Michigan and Wisconsin. Arizona's audit has become Trump's obsession, the Washington Post reports. Quote, ensconced at his private club in Florida, Trump asked aides for updates about the process multiple times a day, advisors said, expressing particular interest in the use of UV lights. Wow, still on the lights. To scrutinize Maricopa's ballots, a method that has bewildered election experts who say it could damage the votes. Quote, he talks about it constantly, said one person who recently visited Mar-a-Lago and listened to Trump discuss the recount for 45 minutes, speaking anonymously, of course. But the worry is not just that the former guy is blabbing about a fake audit to Mar-a-Lago visitors. It's what else he alluded to in his comments. The Post adds this. Trump's embrace of the Arizona effort, which he and his allies claim will prove that the election was stolen, has come amid mounting anxiety among election officials that similar partisan vote counts could become the norm. The perpetuation of the big lie is where we start this hour with some of our favorite reporters and friends. Phil Rucker's here, Washington Post senior Washington correspondent, and lucky for us, an MSNBC political analyst. Also joining us, former RNC chairman and MSNBC contributor Michael Steele. And Ryan Randazzo is here, the Arizona Republic reporter who was removed from the audit site. We have to start with you. First of all, why were you removed and what's going on in there?
Well, why I was removed is still a bit of a mystery. At first, they told me it was because I was taking pictures of volunteers. And then later they said it was because there was a ballot in the photo, and they've never really given me a clear answer. I was escorted out by security, and the person who took me outside the building just said it was over that picture. And I had tweeted a picture of a former lawmaker counting ballots, and that lawmaker was actually at the Capitol on January 6th. So I thought that was newsworthy that we had someone who traveled from Arizona to the Capitol for the riots that disrupted Congress, and now he's down counting ballots. That gentleman also was on that ballot. So I thought, again, it was newsworthy. I tweeted the picture and was quickly removed, and we've been trying to get a clear answer on why I was removed over that photo.
Brian, did you recognize him from footage of the insurrection, or was it just something that you knew? And I want to read from your reporting on just this, because it's just extraordinary that the audit is being conducted by people who participated in the insurrection. You've reported this. Anthony Kern, a former state lawmaker who was at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th when rioters disrupted Congress, is among the people helping to count and inspect Maricopa County ballots. Wow. Kern's name appeared on all of the November ballots that he was counting Friday and Saturday at Veterans Memorial Coliseum as part of an audit ordered by the state Senate. He was nominated by the Republican Party as a presidential elector, and his name appeared on the ballot alongside then-President Donald Trump's name, along with the party's 10 other electors. He also lost his re-election bid for the Arizona House. Tell us more. Is he under any scrutiny for his conduct at the Capitol on January 6th, as far as you know?
Well, Democrats in Arizona had requested that he be investigated for that participating in that event, just to see if he did commit any crimes. We don't know of any, but he clearly was there. There are photographs of him at the Capitol on the 6th. Nothing ever came of that. There's no investigation to my knowledge, but you had asked me, did I recognize him? I certainly did. There was about 100 people on the floor, but Mr. Kern is well known to Arizonans. Besides participating in the insurrection on January 6th, as a lawmaker, he was well known as well because he's on what's known as the Brady list. And this is a list of dishonest law enforcement officials. He was working as a code enforcement officer in a suburb of Phoenix, and a laptop went missing. And he apparently lied to his supervisor about that and got fired. This was right around the time he won his first term in the state house. And once he became a lawmaker in Arizona, he tried to get rid of the Brady list through legislation. So he is someone that reporters in Arizona are certainly going to recognize when they see him participating in this audit.
I need to make sure I understand everything. So he was fired and on a list of sort of discharged law enforcement officials, then became a a local politician went to the insurrection, and now his hands are touching ballots in an audit of Maricopa County votes. How did that happen, in your view, Ryan?
Well, the cyber ninjas told us that they were screening the folks that they were allowing to count these ballots, and that they had done things like looked at their social media. But if you did just a cursory Google search of Anthony Kern, you would learn that he's on this list of dishonest law enforcement people. That would probably preclude you from getting a job where you handled money or any kind of security sensitive position, because he's, basically a known liar and on this county list of dishonest law enforcement. You would also see on his social media that he has tweeted things like directly to President Trump saying, I know there was fraud in this election. So he clearly has a strong bias about what happened with the November election. So to choose him as one of the people who's allowed down on the floor to count ballots and frankly be around ballots, I knew would be concerning to readers.
If I had a paper bag, Michael Steele, I'd be breathing into it. Ryan has, I think, solved the mystery of what they were looking for. He says cyber ninjas were screening these people. Yeah. It was known that he was a disgraced, discharged law enforcement official and that he attended the insurrection, and they picked him. Is there anything else we need to know about what this effort is about, Michael Steele?
No, I don't think there is. I mean, it's very obvious that this is a fraud to perpetuate or continue a fraud, that there was this, great, effort to overturn the election by Democrats and give Donald Trump the win. I mean, it's a massive confusion and noise, which is what they want. At the end of the day, what do they think is going to happen here? What happens at the end of this audit? So they come out and they say, guess what? Joe Biden didn't win the election here in Arizona. The U.S. Senate seat didn't go for the Democrats. What do you think is going to happen then? I mean, because nobody believes this. They're the only idiots in the room believing what they're doing. They're wasting taxpayers' money. They're trying to perpetuate a fraud on top of, like I said, another fraud that this big lie was out there. You put these people in charge. You got a disgraced, elected official sitting at the table looking at his own ballots with his name on it and counting, and no one thinks there's a problem there. I mean, it's just stupid. All of this is stupid, and I wish people would stop treating it like it's serious. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. And the day will come when states like Arizona continue down this road where there's going to be federal intervention. And then what do? You have no hat to, hook to hang your hat on at that point, Nicole, because you are demonstrating you cannot be trusted with the votes of the citizens in your state.
Well, and I think the reason it is worthy of Ryan's superb reporting and our scrutiny is because the lie fuels the gravest threat to our homeland security. And the lie, you talked about a room full of idiots. Other rooms full of idiots are regaling the disgraced ex-president with stories about how goes the audit. I mean, if he'd spent that much time looking for COVID testing supplies, he might have been reelected, Michael Steele.
Yeah, imagine that. If you just did the job that you were elected to do, you wouldn't be sitting in Mar-a-Lago in a cup of, pity stew. The fact of the matter is you got people who are feeding that nonsense to Trump. The country's moved on. We are so past him at this point. It's galling to him. But this is his little hook. And then you've got the likes of members on the Hill and others in states like Arizona who want to perpetuate this narrative. And then actions taken like we see in Arizona, thanks to the great reporting, just to pull it out of the crap hole and show us exactly how bad it is, but more importantly, how potentially worse it could get. Because this does touch on a whole host of things that go beyond just the ballot itself. It is one of the important legs that underscores and holds up our democracy. And when you take that leg out, it doesn't stand, and it doesn't stand strong for long. So I think that more good reporting on this is important, and more scrutiny has to be shown on this. But we know at the end of the day, it doesn't change anything. But that's not the point.